Our next session urges banks to re-evaluate their digital journeys, drawing lessons from e-commerce players who have successfully deciphered customer demands. We'll explore the pivotal role of payment aggregators and payment gateways in navigating these journeys, exemplified by entities like Razorpay that bridge the gap between banks and e-commerce platforms, offering unique insights into customer behavior and transactional dynamics. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you Benchmark to E-Commerce, Digital Journey to Hit Refresh, we have our panelist, Harish Sashidhar, Head Digital Banking, Consumer Banking Group, DBS Bank. Let's have a huge round of applause for him. Mr. Pankaj Gupta, Chief Digital and Marketing Officer, Karnataka Bank. Let's have a huge round of applause for him as well. Mr. Sheetal Lalwani, Co-Founder and COO, Juspay. Mr. Venkatesh P, Co-Founder, Director and Head Thought Leadership, Mavericks Systems. Let's have a huge round of applause. And this session is also going to be chaired by Singh Jaini, Founder and CEO, The Digital Fifth.
Thank you. Last session, and I'm sure many of you must be very, very tired. How many of you are really, really tired? बहुत लोगों से मुलाकात हुई. कितने लोगों की मुलाकातें हुई? बहुत सारी. Did you get new friends here? Old friends rather. Yeah, lots of them. So I think thank you for being there. I think I saw a lot of speakers staying there for the whole day, which is amazing, So I think the thought process behind this session was that in e-commerce, we talk about customer acquisition, servicing, cross-sell every day, right? In e-commerce, you don't sell a product to a customer once and leave it there. The engagement layers, the kind of thing we have seen with Amazon, Flipkart, and each of these guys who actually operate out there, and they have more complexity, right? Just think about it. They finally deliver something. In banking, we deliver nothing. So when FD is open, it's open. When loan is given, loan is given. So there's nothing which is done by us, but still we lag out there because there is something called mobile banking. Now we are stuck in mobile banking. Mobile banking means itna hi hoga, usme itna hi kharcha hoga. Vendor ने अगर 2 crore मांग लिया तो बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया, right? So those are the issues we were always there. Now what has changed dramatically and interestingly, mobile banking platforms, guys, can we just please settle down, please? One request, yeah. So from a banking perspective, we always thought of channels separately. I don't think e-commerce does that all the time. So I think very, very interesting phenomena. So we thought it is time for banks to rethink on their journeys, and of course. They can't do on their own. They need partnerships of various kinds, and therefore we have the best of the partners in the market as well on the panel, and we'll get a full perspective. So I think before we start, maybe Harish, maybe first is a very open question. How are the banks thinking about being on par or ahead of e-commerce, and what's the kind of journeys you are building? What are the KPIs you're looking at a broad level?
Sure. Thanks, Amir. So I think if you really look at all the different stages of a typical e-commerce journey, right from the time you have the awareness and discovery phase to the consideration phase, the actual purchase and post-purchase, I think there are a bunch of stuff that financial institutions can sort of learn and adapt, right? So if you look at the first phase, just the discovery phase, just the way the digital marketing is done, that leading e-commerce companies do, the content factories that they build to basically help drive traffic or the right traffic, to their products, I think they do a better job, right? Secondly, in the consideration phase, it's all about making sure that your products are sort of listed in a manner that's easy to understand, easy to compare, and the product pages, the various the details about the products are sort of in simple language sort of conveyed. And coming to the purchase itself, right? Obviously, there's a lot of effort that goes into orchestrating that piece and making sure there's no drop-offs at that particular piece. And that's also the case with journeys. Like even if you look at a simple savings account, you need to ensure that all of this happens. And of course, at the time when you ask for that initial funding, for example, in a savings account journey, that's handled seamlessly. And last but not least of all is the post-purchase piece, right? And that's where your engagement nudges, the fact that how e-commerce companies use data comes to the fore. And that's an area that banks are obviously constantly looking at to drive up engagement rates. So in summary, I think all 4 stages of a typical e-commerce digital journey is what financial institutions can learn and adapt. Is
This is good. This is good. Maybe a similar question to you. Maybe very open one. Think about it. What's the missing gap? E-commerce on one side is more universal. They deliver at home as well. And we are trying to figure out internet banking का क्या करें, mobile banking का क्या करें, journey कैसे बनाएं. How do we ensure that marketing campaigns are well done? I think the biggest challenge is the marketing campaigns are very, very difficult to do. The CAC structure, how do you do organic sales, right? I met a neobank who said that their organic sales is almost 65%, which is brilliant. So any thoughts from your side how, and of course Karnataka Bank has done started doing a lot of work here as well, including marketing and platforms. So क्या idea है, क्या कर सकते हैं?
So, Samir, I know you gave a question and I see empty chairs, so we'll enjoy ourselves. And first of all, your topic is hit refresh, and you're talking about, so let me draw an analogy. How many music lovers are here in the limited group?
Who?
Music lovers, music. So you're talking about e-commerce, and in a way, Spotify also is something which is e-commerce as well as music. So, this is the moment. This is a Shakti moment, and all of you know what's happening. 5 Indians winning Grammy awards, and their music is a fusion music. And for the first time, I think this is the moment, and why it is happening? Because it's a hit refresh which has happened. The foreigners are playing guitars like a violin, and the Indians are playing mridanga and violins like a guitar. So this fusion is working, and that is what customers are loving. And this just goes to say that there's a hit refresh which has to happen. And just from a music standpoint, it has taken 50 years from the music to become portable, cassette drives, to it to be available now on streaming. The cycles are no longer 50 years. The cycles are probably 3 years, 5 years now for us. And the point I wanted to make is, the topic is about your entire e-commerce. The new generation, the generation alpha, the generation Y, the generation Z, they are born in the digital world, correct? And their experiences are getting shaped by their interactions happening on Netflix, on Amazon, on Spotify. They don't understand, Samir, when they come into the banking world, why a banking app should not have a catalog as comprehensive as Amazon, or why a banking app should not deliver on-demand services like a Swiggy, or why a banking app should not be as agile as Spotify. They expect that. And whoever will, they won't even understand the rigidity or the agile, which app today provides. So it's time to really look at, and digital is really a leveler. So whether it is a leading bank or a fintech or a bank like us, I think it's an opportunity, because if you are among the best, it's a leveler, and you can compete with the best if you have the right hit refresh in your journeys, not only mobile banking. And you could be the largest, but if you have not done your hit refresh, you'll suddenly find yourself lagging as this generation comes to being. So on that note, I'll stop.
Thank you. Thank you. यार Juspay करता क्या है, right? It's very confusing company, right? आप platform बनाते हो payments के, but payment gateway हो या नहीं हो complicated है, right? But you do a lot of stuff with a lot of big players. You do Nammayatri, right? Which is very different business, and then everybody knows you as somebody who built the Bharat Bheem app, right? So how did you? I mean, in all the 3 places, you need to have a brilliant journey to make it happen, right? And you're ultra focused. I mean, the page or checkout page is always yours, right? So what does it take to build those journeys, and what can banks pick up from your experiences?
Thanks, Samir. You touched upon the entire spectrum, right? Payments, where you get things done in an instant, frictionless. Just get in and get out. That's what a customer wants. Namayatri is a full discovery, booking, tracking journey, right? And of course, Bheem, it's more than payments and all of that. If there was one theme which unifies it and how it led us to build those experiences was build it for yourself. Right? That's something, and touching upon what the previous panelist said, like we are so used to experiences like a WhatsApp, a Uber, a Spotify. We all are used to really good experiences. Then why do we settle for experiences which are so substandard when we build within our, our ecosystem, right? So if you keep that bar high and you build it for yourself, and Namayatri, when we launched also, we were like, will I use this app? Juspay Safe SDK, when we did, we built it for ourselves as consumers, right? I want that OTP to be auto-captured easily, right? So if we keep that bar high and build it for yourself, I think you will build magical journeys. And of course, you need that infrastructure around you, but it has to start with yourself. We don't do too much of user research, what do the users want and all of that. You be the user, right? Whether Namayatri, whether it's a driver app or the consumer app, even as a driver, you must have seen like Vimal, who's the founder and CEO, Magaran, who's leading Namayatri now, they actually take auto rides and be drivers, not for, marketing gimmick or just so that you understand, the auto driver, he's sitting in this, dusty, hot place and, the phone heats up. So not being able to click it instantly is such a simple thing we wouldn't even relate to unless you're in their shoes. So I would say build it for yourself is the theme which we actually live by to build such magical experiences.
No, I'll next time have an experience with Vimal driving me around the city, right? Interesting.
If you're lucky, yes.
So interestingly, I think many of you may be thinking that event is slightly more complicated. The subjects are very, very complicated or slightly deeper. You may have felt that each area we've dealt more from a secured home loans. Every area we have tried to delve, including trade finance. Actually, we have tried to build it for ourselves. We wanted the guys here who actually have all the deep knowledge to come. Otherwise, simple stuff to koi bhi kar sakta hai. So I think that's what the intent. So hopefully it would have come to some of you. It's slightly difficult, but hopefully it would have been okay. So maybe Venkatesh, from your perspective, you worked a lot. You work a lot outside India as of now. So what are the stuff which happens out there, which we can absorb now? It's not that India is behind. I mean, my personal perspective is that in fintech and digital lending and payments, we are way ahead. But still, on the experiences side, I think we still sometimes are okay with chalta hai types. So what can we learn to sort of build something next scale and get away from this mobile banking issue?
See, all of them touched upon the experience part. I would like to touch upon something which, when we built a e-commerce platform, wanted to use a bank as the financial backbone, and we were actually working with that bank. And there are some learnings in that, because it is a lending platform, which is on lent by the merchant, or it is lent to the consumer. But the approach with the e-commerce firm brings and the mindset with which they work are very different from how the banks work. Because the e-commerce firm was analyzing, they're absolutely aligned to the customer to find out whether financing is driving the sale or the product characteristics are driving the sale in the first place. Mm-hmm. The second, they really wanted to understand what models and structures of lending work, what models and structures don't work, for which they don't want to rely only upon their portfolio, and therefore they are asking the platform to share what the experience of the other merchants have been. Third, it is all data-driven. So the first they look at, if I were to be with this business model in place, what kind of a data that I can get from their ecosystem and from their platform in order for them to decide. And one of the biggest thing is those mindsets in terms of being data-led, in terms of being sure that they will validate the business model week on week. They are not wanting a situation to react to. Now, this is something which is very fundamental to banking. They should have actually taught the e-commerce firms, whereas we found that the e-commerce firm taught the banks how to do that management better, So that's been our experience. And I really think that's a good experience for banks to serve e-commerce firms in whichever way, whether you support them as a backbone or onboard them as a customer, you will come to know that.
Yeah, their questions will be tough, right? Very, very tough. So, yeah, interesting. Interesting. So, I think with this, I mean, we've spoken from all sides. It'll be good for us to understand the perspective of somebody who's building the tech stack, right? So, Arpit, maybe from your perspective, given that you have been building a lot of stuff at scale, right? I think you have platforms for onboarding customers, servicing customers. I mean, amazing amount of usage has been done by you. So what has been your experience to improve the customer journeys? What have you built which can be used by them? And I've seen you growing so much, right? I remember, so just to quick history, I think 7, 8 years back or 8 years back we would have met, and I had seen these two young kids coming across and pitching it. Then on that day I couldn't understand who's Arpit and who's Ankit. Sorry, I still don't know, but you're still my friend. So, and you have grown so much. I mean, your growth has been amazing. So proud, so proud. So over to you.
Thanks, Amit. Likewise, I think we were just discussing how big this event is, and this turning out to be one of the biggest fintech events that we see in the country every year, and I hope we'll be bigger next year. But I mean, I don't know if you remember, but our first problem deck actually used to be that, and what you were referring earlier, that if you look at banking, the product is digital, but the experience is physical. And in Amazon, the product is physical, but the experience is digital. And that was our original problem statement that we started with as a company. And there were areas within banking where this applied, and one of them was access, which we call onboarding, for example, today, right? It's truly access, right? If I want to access an Amazon product, I literally need to download the app, do some sign up and start buying. That's not true with a banking product, right? There is a bunch of paperwork, bunch of physical stuff. Now a lot of it is digitized, but it used to be very physical. Someone will come to your house or you'll go somewhere. I think access was one part where if you digitize it fully, now if you see fintechs, what they truly solved was they gave an e-commerce like access experience to banking products, right? That was the real value add that they brought into this form. And I think we have solved the access part. There's other part of e-commerce which is very interesting, right? It gives you reliability. So if you buy an Amazon, you know that on this date, within this time, the product will come to your home. It's such a hard problem to solve. It looks so simple, but it's so hard to make sure that this product will be in your home by this time, and that's physically happening. In bank, I have to literally tell you when can I issue a credit card, which is my internal process. Still, I cannot tell you that, yaar, 2 din mein aapko credit card mil jayega, right? So the other part where we feel banks need to solve is that if we can automate, and how Amazon did it, they automate everything. Everything is AI driven. All decision happens. There's no human who's checking the inventory and telling you a decision. The system does it. So I think the more banks start relying on automation and AI within their systems to enable decisions as well, I think that will also bring the experience more like a e-commerce, right? I think access largely to some extent we've been able to crack.
No, this is good. This is good. I think from your perspective as a bank, I think we've always had an issue, and I myself was not a great guy on data side. So one of the biggest issue when I left, I said, boss, I couldn't build great stack for my previous bank, DCB. And of course, my only thing I did was I hired a few guys and left, but I think the rest was built by them. So this is one area where I think I found very sort of me wanting. So what's your view on how banks are now using data? And what are you see scenarios which is used, right? वो पेपर पे तो बोलते हैं टीवी में वो क्या होता है फ्रिज अपने आप कुछ ऑर्डर कर देगा और ये हो जाएगा. But what's the realistic use case where you have used it and where you found it ultra impactful, right? And again, those KPIs has to be there. When you use it, थोड़ा improve हो गया. What is the quantification? So how do you see improvement and how do you quantify that?
Sure. So I think banks have been, to be fair, on this journey for a while now, actually, and that's certainly changing, right, from the days that you talked about. Banks are investing quite heavily into data lakes and making sure the rich data that they have are coming together in one view. I think that was always really the challenge. So with that coming in, and with the fact that we now have fairly useful and fairly evolved sort of data models, which kind of brings together three pieces. One is, of course, the transaction data, the behavioral data, but also the customer profile data, and things like product holdings, etc., which is the honors data. So all three of these sort of data sets coming together, we are able to get a good sense of what the customer might need going forward, and therefore be able to sort of tailor services and nudges to that effect, right? And we've seen that models have evolved over time, and it's getting sharper and sharper as we kind of go through this journey. And I think simple things, right? Even rule-based stuff, like if supposing in an account you get a large credit, how can you sort of immediately, like for example, pitch an FD product? I mean, just to take an example, or basis the sort of data model, one gets the sense that this customer would need, let's say, a credit product. So those are sort of fairly, I think we've got to a stage where these models are fairly evolved now, and therefore we have, with a fair degree of certainty, being able to sort of understand the propensity of a specific customer to a set of products, right? So that way we are seeing that our engagement rates are going up. Some of the key factors that we look at, obviously not just customer onboarding, but also our DAU rates, how they are sort of trending. Also product penetration, which is obviously a direct consequence of how we nudge the customer in real time or on deferred basis to be able to take up these products that we nudge them for. So I think, to be fair, banks have come a long way. Obviously there's work to be done, but we certainly have been on this journey for quite a while now. Yeah.
Maybe because your bank has been very explicit in your tech stack opening up. You have all the, I think some name is there, right? Google and all. You have put some something. What is that?
It's Gandalf. Yeah.
Gandalf, right? So you have put yourself in comparison to Google and everybody else, Amazon and all. From your perspective, how did you build it, right? From a team perspective, it's tough, right? So quick one on that, saying, boss, it's no longer a business driving it. Business guys need to understand the tech stack and those some KPIs, which are very difficult. DAO, you talk to a bank saying, what is DAO? Now maybe they would have picked up, but earlier it was not there, right?
Yeah, so I think that's a very important point that you raised, actually, Samir. So while tech is obviously there and it's kind of commoditized and all of that, I think it's the juice is in the way I think teams come together to sort of achieve the end objective of how do we look at that customer, in a manner that n equals 1, right? How do you get that hyper personalization going, and how do you sort of get not just the tech stack, but also the teams working together to sort of deliver those contextual nudges. And to your point, the stew in a box approach, wherein both the tech and the business come together as a sort of a co-functional team, so to speak. Not just tech and business, but also the support function. So it's also re-architecting in some sense of how the teams are engaging with each other, rather than, so basically it's about how do we break silos at the end of the day for various teams to come together. So quite some time back, we had also looked at or adopted this two-in-a-box approach, where it is a joint ownership between both the tech and the business teams, supported of course by all the support functions, to be able to sort of get to specific outcomes. So that has been a very important piece, not just the tech piece. Yeah.
Thank you. So Pankaj, your data journey has started and you've done a lot of work around that. Maybe you can quickly give us perspective on data, kahan se kya ho sakta hai, and how it is impactful to the real world, and how early wins have been demonstrated. How does it work, right? Because किसी को trust ही नहीं होता ये होने वाला है. So what has been your journey in building it up?
So, I'll come to that data, but the point I would want to make before that is, I've been hearing quite a lot in terms of what banks can do, what they can learn from e-commerce. And definitely, I correlate to what you said. When you serve a customer who is demanding and who is, at that edge of technology, you automatically get forced to kind of, and that's a great idea. I think all banks should serve e-commerce companies and not vice versa. Fintechs are now kind of partnering with banks. They should not learn the rigid ways of banks. But having said that, I think we are quite self-critical. Banking is quite self-critical. Today retail GMV, though we talk about Amazon and all, retail GMV is less than 20% digital. 80% plus is still offline. Do you know how much globally banking is digital? Any guesses? Transactions globally in the banking fraternity, and this is not post-COVID, this is pre-COVID. Close to 78% pre-COVID. So let us not beat ourselves, and you know, you go around, and I didn't want to, but let me just kind of call it out. Karnataka Bank is going to now complete 100 years, and there are a lot of banks. So something right we are doing, right? And possibly there is some area of learning which you know, the other ecosystem can also have from us. Coming to your data, the point also is that it's integrated. We should not be looking at it as one piece. It's not just the customer experience or the front end. It's the back end, it's the product. And if I have to correlate it to, let's say, a Maslow triangle, unless the basic product, process, and policy is aligned to supporting that experience, and unless the product policy is aligned to the compliance and the trust factor, which is then aligned to security, and then comes the customer experience part of it, right? It goes in that way. And I think that's the challenge which, you know, currently banks have. So probably it's not very fair to keep comparing all the time, right? And the other thing is, you know, and all has to happen end to end. And when talking about your data journey also, so it's not just one piece. I think if we excel just in one piece and not focus on the other three pieces, the customer experience, the business outcomes will be as broken. Nothing is going to come out. Rather, it's only risk is going to come out. Yes, a two-click journey for the customer is very important. But the remaining at the back end in terms of product policy, in terms of compliance, in terms of security is equally important. Correct? So from a data standpoint, you know, it's the same thing, right? Data quality, data pipeline, modeling, yes, these are all things which we talk about, right? How do you extract data? How do you really then moderate that data, improve the quality of the data? How do you really build that pipeline? What kind of modeling you're doing is all the technology part of it. But what is more important is how you're using the data. Is the organization ready? What you're using, how you're orchestrating, you know, outcomes from that data. Now, and do you have an ecosystem, a decisioning engine, a support structure, and control mechanisms to really look at, you know, fine-tuning whatever is happening for deriving outcomes both for the customer as well as for the bank. And I think at least the journey has started in Karnataka Bank, and at least we are mindful of that. I won't say that, you know, we have kind of hit the pinnacle, but we are mindful of that, and whatever we are doing is in an end-to-end context. Each of the pieces may not be best, but we are trying to see how everything works together for the best outcome for the customer and the bank.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, Sheetal, payment comes with security and risks and all of that, right? And so much of complications there. And the only thing where payment companies will exist when they ensure the data is really secure and nothing else can happen out there, because margins are thin and you make one mistake, you're done. So what is that needs to be done by entities to build a scale? Obviously, I'm not talking about anything else on e-commerce side, but experience the wo hai, but security is of next level, right? Which is what you do in payments. So what is that they can do?
Samir, I can share some principles which we use when dealing with data security, because that then tends to apply horizontally in whatever product you use. Of course, first is, you know, when it comes to data, the thing is we have this micro architecture framework, so many services talking to each other. So what tends to happen is data tends to get bounced around, even though it's not needed in a lot of places. It just happens to be a payload sometimes, just piggyback ho jata hai, right? Eventually, after 5 hops, it's needed, but it goes through those 5 hops. You know, a very powerful but simple concept is you usually have to have end-to-end encryption, right? You encrypt it as close to the source as possible, decrypt it as you know, close to the destination as possible, so that in between no one has to worry about how do I handle that data, right? That's one way where it gives you some sort of confidence from first principles that, okay, I don't really have to be super careful. I just, you do that. And the other thing is, of course, minimal data, right? Capture only what is needed. And that too, you do that at perimeter, right? If there's something which is not even supposed to enter your system, drop it. And we've had instances where, data is not needed, but it comes into the system, gets logged, and then that becomes...
We will figure out later.
Yes, बाद में देखते हैं and all of that, right? So data minimization, end-to-end encryption is there. And the third concept is this concept of least privilege, right?
Correct.
If someone doesn't need to access, if you don't need to know, you don't need to have access to it also, right? And again, that can be done from first principles. The way, once you organize data, the kind of, at least in cloud, you have a lot of user roles kind of concepts, right? So you have user roles which always have minimum access to data, and then you step up whenever needed.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So Venkatesh, maybe you can give us a quick view on the tech side or a process side or anything else which can be adopted from your experiences. A lot of times new tech comes and other time when I used to be a CTO and now I talk to new generation, वो क्या बात करते हैं आधा समझ में ही नहीं आता, right? So I mean, it almost looks like I'm like talking Greek and Latin, right? So yeah, so any thought from perspective, what are the key technologies or stuff which will be required for banks to look at and invest in?
See, the tech stacks are all well known. I think it's more than the tech stack, what usage and what benefit that it is going to give. And where is it relevant, Take, for example, the blockchain or the DLT. It becomes relevant when it is multilateral parties which are involved and they need to refer to a single source. Then it becomes very critical to know that unless those underlying principles are there, you don't do it. Trade finance is one area where it matters, and it also matters in some parts of the retail asset lending where the document, for example, the mortgage, will go through a government registry and it will go through modification that everybody can go to share and they can know the status on the property is concerned. Similarly, if you look at AI also, you need to put, see, I don't think ROI is far away if you have a good use case to determine where you will use to get your ROI in place. So if you have those principles in place, it will help. See, so is the case with today, everybody is saying LLM, I'm using it here and there. Now, in the financial service industry, it's a regulated entity. AI, if you were to use for your credit decisioning or any of those decision parameters are concerned, you need to use, and it's a platform which has an ability to give you a traceability of how those decisions were arrived at. Now, can LLM give you those traceability today? So you build those components in because you are a regulated industry, you will be asked those. Why go and figure that out later? Have it as part of your architecture, understand those principles that it needs to be done and therefore look for how to build those. That's what I would say in respect of any of those tech areas. If those principles are laid out, then you can actually see whether you are getting the outcome rather than saying, I am also into AI, I am also using those NLPs or whatever.
No, this is great. This is great.
Yeah, outcome driven is what should drive us. I'm saying outcome driven approach is what should drive us.
Principle driven.
Mike.
Where it is applicable and what I need to get out.
Yeah, perfect. So, Arpit, from your perspective, banks, obviously when I was talking about e-commerce and all, I think it's more really a journey thing. Journey can also be through partnerships as well, right? So, how do you think the banks should build their tech stack or agility out there where they just don't handle themselves as a e-commerce, but allow everybody else to use them like that way as well, right? Where they are providers of service, and which is what is happening right now. One of the things which, when we were talking about Venkatesh saying that e-commerce, आपको सीखना ही पड़ा because checkout financing ही वैसे होती है. That's how the unsecured line happened because checkout financing was होती है. Digital payments नहीं हो because checkout में you were there, right? And when you had this big billion dollar when everybody failed, everybody had to improve the stack, right? There's no choice, right? So maybe you can give your perspective on how you are helping, and maybe any scenarios where you would want to call out these scenarios, these case studies could have been very impactful to the organization from a partnership perspective, because everybody technically use your APIs all the time, right?
Yeah, I think there are two sides to this, right? And we were discussing this earlier as well, right? One is the tech, which I think a lot of people will figure out. API is becoming how you do business across industries. I think the larger point is that when you start partnering across, and what Sheetal was also mentioning, is that you're starting to now move transactions across different systems and different channels. And if it's all good, everyone, gets the good of it. But if it's bad, then who's the final, bad beneficiary to cash? That becomes a huge problem in the system. And if you look at today, all the RBI is so riled up is because in this fully digitized, partner, fintech-driven Indian financial ecosystem, you can no longer trace where the transaction originates and where it ends. It's so hard, right? And to solve that problem, I think as an ecosystem, I don't think a single bank will be able to solve it. But as an ecosystem, along with the government and regulator, what we really need to create is a more robust way of monitoring some of these things. And monitoring this across system, transaction will be very important for this partnership to even exist and be relevant in future, because you see what happened in digital lending. The world has moved so far away, but RBI came back and said that, look, yeah, this cannot happen because I can no longer, see this bunch of transactions are happening outside my licensed operation, right? They came back and they licensed PAs because largely believe that, look, a large amount of now payments are happening outside my licensed or regulated environment. So the point I'm making is that this is no longer a tech play in that sense. Partner is now a very compliance play where you need to make sure that all ecosystem partners are well regulated, well operated, and well monitored, which RBI wants to do now.
And maybe how are you contributing to the whole structure, right? Because they're trusting your platforms all the time.
Yeah, so I think we have very recently launched new products for monitoring. I think monitoring is a very crucial aspect. It was always understood that a bank has to do monitoring. वो bank का job है, and everyone can just keep doing the e-commerce since you're using the term. So everyone can do the experience part of it. Bank अपना compliance करेगा, right? But now that is no longer true, right? So the truth is that if you are part of that ecosystem and that financial journey of a customer, you're equally supposed to do it, right? So what we are both making people aware in the fintech ecosystem is that monitoring is also your job. It's no longer that आपने KYC कर लिया and it's done. Through the lifetime of the transaction, the risk has to be mitigated at each level and has to be monitored at each level. And once we are all mature to do it, I think we will be much better as a financial ecosystem.
Can I just add? I think it's quite confidence inspiring hearing this from you. And not only the regulator is on your back, now the legislation is also on your back with DPDP coming. It's going to become even a lot more tighter. And seriously, the industry will have to sit together and see that everything is overboard.
See, in fact, in Europe, they have already launched an operational resilience regulation which tracks the entire supply chain. That means the entire supply chain will get regulated, irrespective of whether you are a tech provider or a service provider, you will get. And a similar regulation is in place in the US, and it is time India also catches up on that, because you can't push it to one party. Everybody has to be compliant, and the awareness doesn't come unless you are regulated.
But in India, unfortunately, the top of the value chain is who is getting regulated, both by the legislator and the regulator. Balance have to self-regulate.
Okay. Interestingly, it is last session, and thankfully we didn't lose people. We actually gained some people, right, which is good. So maybe it will be good to have one or two questions to this patient audience here, right? So maybe one or two questions we can take from the group, if you have anything out here. Anybody here? If it's too late in the day, let's enjoy. Thank you guys, and thanks a lot for being a patient audience at this point of time. Thank you. I think this is a privilege to be with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Mr. Sameer, for such an insightful session and such a wonderful day. Ladies and gentlemen, with this we come to the end of day 1 of the BFS 2024 conclave. You've been a wonderful audience and we are excited to see you again tomorrow at 9 o'clock. The session starts. Thank you so much. My name is Lalwani. You have a very good evening.